For those who are wondering why the acknowledgement was not at the beginning, because the core values of Griffith University is one of inclusive practice and of sharing. And tonight is a symphony, a coming together of auditory, sight, sound, emotion, love. So rather than the acknowledgement up front as a separate entity, we are part of your entertainment, your auditory, your visual, your sound, as well as these incredible young, gifted musicians behind us. Jarman agenda gumuroi wanangulda, diriamandu, gabienda, terrible, gabienda, yagara, jagra, gadapu, diriamandu, garu. My uncle, senior songman, artist to me, will now do the acknowledgement. Gabienda.
Kati Murawari, Dalimara Kalali, Yagara, Durable. Kati Murawari is the land of my mother's country, northwest New South Wales. Dalimara Kalali is southwest Argamina country. I pay my respects to the traditional custodians of this land that I've lived on for 35 years, with respect to have permission to walk their lands, their waterways, and learn their laws and their cultures as we do as traditional men. I'm connected to Pindinjara and also through the Southeastern Islander groups. I acknowledge the groups from there to here, to the south to the north, and as we travel the land of the smoking of the country from South Australia right through to here, and for all the mobs that came from other lands looking for freedom and happiness, welcome you mob and all your families, and the custodians, elders, past and present, and the ancestors that allow this to happen on this land. With the new era coming, about all gathering as one human race, to listen to music, dance, and stories and songs of all our peoples, of all our waterways. Protect the waterways, they protect our lands. You take away the goodness of the land, you take away our lives as well. So pay my respects to all your ancestors, and the ones that are coming, the ones that have gone, and the ones that are growing here. So I pay my respects now. And I thank you, and I thank my brother, Kamilaroi Nation, next to where my grandfather came from. So I'm connected to all the way from Kamilaroi, right out to the Western Deserts, right up into Broome. So all Australia is connected to me. So I pay my respects to my brother from Fraser Island, who came to me with this option to be here to paint his story for what he last seen. So that's what I'm here for, to enjoy everybody's nation, everybody's stories, and to be part of this great evening and the last few weeks. I thank you all, enjoy everything that we're having, and then we will talk about it for days on, days out, and tell our grandchildren the story of togetherness of the human race. It's like Dalimara said, we weren't known as Irish, Scottish, or German. We were known as the human race. The day they put a tag on us was the day we forgot who we were and who we are. So remember, human race, not where you come from or not who your bloodline is, because we are one. I thank you.
Agomoroi! Ah, ah! Lyddiard.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, all, one and all. Thank you for joining us for what promises to be an evening full of inspired storytelling. My name is Peter Morris. I'll be your conductor and MC for the night. I'd like to show my appreciation to Marcus Waters, the Dean Learning and Teaching Indigenous here at Griffith University, for organizing that acknowledgement to country. That was going to be me and Marcus about 20 minutes ago. And then they just got together and said, hey, you want to come and do this? Let's do this together. And in fact, we didn't even have an orchestra or choir 20 minutes ago. We just sort of put it together. But what is fantastic and what I'm so grateful for is that heartfelt and very meaningful and timely acknowledgement and reminder of the human race that we are. Thank you to Michael, one of our painters, to Alan, one of our participants, and of course to Zeus, Alan's guide dog. Please join me in thanking them for that. Thank you very much. Also, that first piece, the Intrada, the fanfare that actually brings and collaborates with the acknowledgement to country, was written by Dr. Ralph Hultgren. Ralph, if you could please wave, rise. There he is, right up at the back. Thank you, Ralph. So before we go on with the storytelling and music, just a little bit of an introduction. Joining us on stage are nearly 200 talented musicians from the Conservatorium, the Voices of Birralee, and the Young Conservatorium. Behind the scenes are passionate and dedicated filmmakers, artists, technical and operational staff, academic professional staff, and of course our friends and partners from the Queensland Eye Institute Foundation. Literally waltzing through themes of nostalgia, heartbreak, sacrifice, passion, determination. Ultimately tonight, we present you an evening of inspiration, joy, and celebration. 10 remarkable vision-impaired Australians have shared some of their most personal memories with accomplished artists, composers, and filmmakers to depict their last scene or most cherished visual memory before their sight deteriorated. These stories have been transformed into works of art, film, and music which combine to create Last Scene. Tonight we'll be lacing together all of the collaborative arts to celebrate these memories that we've all come to cherish. The staff and the students at the Griffith Film School have shared their artistry in presenting these short films for each of the participants' stories. 10 prodigious Australian composers have created new works, brand new Australian works for orchestra and choir to be presented by the Conservatorium Symphony Orchestra, along with our friends from the Voices of Birralee. As essential to the mission is each of you in the audience tonight. It's not an understatement. Our artistic energies are collaborating with each and every person in this room, including a number of furry friends, to help save sight. So on behalf of the Queensland Eye Institute Foundation and Griffith University, welcome, and let's begin.
The thing that really keeps me going is having established what my why is in life. It took me a long time to find it, but it happened one day when I was really struggling with the grief of my vision loss, And I had been invited to speak to a group of mothers who had young children who were blind or had low vision. And for me, that was a really powerful moment, because I did that and I met with them and I talked about my life and about the education that I'd done and the schooling and, you know, the moving different cities and sort of the things that I had achieved in my life that these parents, quite understandably, were very anxious about whether their children would be able to do. And for me, it gave me sort of a recognition as I walked away from that experience that, you know, I had something quite valuable that I could impart to other people, which is the fact that, yes, I do have vision loss. Yes, my vision is declining, but that I still nonetheless have quite a lot of capability in doing things with my life. And that was only fortified by meeting other people who were also blind or had low vision, and they were doing exceptional things with their life. And I don't mean it in the way of inspiration, like being put on a pedestal, but I mean that they are still getting on with their life, irrespective of the fact that they have lost vision or are losing vision, and they're doing incredible things with it. And just like anyone, you know, that is something that, you know, can be held up as a sort of, you know, model of how everyone could live their life, you know. And I really believe that if it's not me speaking up and advocating and being person sharing my experiences, then who else? So I feel a sense of responsibility to do it, that I have the capability to speak up and I feel comfortable doing so, although it's taken me a long time to get to that place. And so that I hope that maybe the experiences that I'm sharing will help someone else, and then maybe that will pave the way for them to do that for someone else, and so on. So for me, I just feel like I'm essentially being positive in the way of giving back to a world that's given so much to me.
Jane, are you here? Can we give a wave to Jane? Hello, Jane. So the way tonight will work is I'll give a quick introduction to each of the pieces to tie together what the film is telling about the artwork and the story, and then how that evolves into the music and some of the composer's ideas. Tim Davies is the composer of this piece. I don't know if you'll know his name, but he is amazing and massive and wonderful. He is a Hollywood film composer. He is a graduate of the Queensland Conservatorium, Griffith University. You might have heard of things like Frozen, Frozen 2, a lot of Marvel and sort of major movies, and hundreds of films and things to his name. He reached out and was composed this for us and for Jane. And the story is Jane remembers the bells on a trip to Italy, and the bells in the cobbled streets and that sort of thing. So this is what Tim has painted in the music.
I'm Jeff Usher. I'm a jazz pianist, a composer. You know, from the moment I get up until the moment I go to bed, and even, then even my dreams, I dream about hearing pieces of music or playing pieces of music, so it's always there. You know, I've never had eyesight, but what I always did have was a lot of self-belief. Because when I play, I try not to just play music. I try to make it like as if I'm making a journey or telling a story. That's really what I try to do. I love blues and greens. When I had a little bit of sight, I always found them very gentle colours to look at. One of the last things I remember seeing that made an impact on me, my music teacher, who ended up as a great friend for many years as well, a lady called Kathleen Kerr, turning up to take a group of us to a concert at Sydney Town Hall. She turned up this particular afternoon and she had on a full-length lime green dress. I saw this lovely lime green and I thought, yeah, that's a fabulous colour. And I'd always liked that colour. When I sat down to write this piece of music for the last scene project, I thought, yep, I know exactly what I'm going to write it about, and I'm going to call it Angel in a Lime Green Dress, because Kathleen was an angel in my case. She talked me out of quitting music when I was 13. That's pretty good. The fact that she thought it was worth her while to talk me out of quitting music, that was very important to me. I was very impressed with that. I thought, well, this is a person I can trust. I wanted to write it in E major because the key of E major always is one of my favourite keys. I just wanted it to be a wonderful piece of music, as wonderful as I can make it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Jeff Usher.
if you have a disability, if you're different than anybody else, the world isn't designed for you. So you have to work harder, you have to do more things to achieve the same result. Some people are happy to do that, but that shouldn't be the case. I always knew I was blind, but I didn't understand what that meant in the grand scheme of things. I lived in Colombia up until I was 12, and that's when Mum and Dad decided to take a plunge and move us to Australia. Mum and Dad were always very encouraging and said to me, the only thing I cannot do is see. A big realization of me losing my sight was in Australia when we first arrived. Actually, it was in 2010 when this happened. My dad had his bike and I said, oh, do you mind if I go up the road? And it was probably 100 meters up the road, nothing too far. And I jumped on the bike and I started pedaling, and I didn't feel comfortable to go all the way up the road, and I stopped and went back to the house and I said, you know, my vision has decreased. If I had to describe my eyesight as of right now, in 2022, it's good enough to see colours, see shapes, see big objects. I have always known that my vision is going to disappear. So knowing that has always allowed me to say, we'll just find another way. My guide dog's name is Trey. He's a black Labrador and he just turned 3. He keeps me out of trouble. He's an amazing little friend. Commitment is second to none. Would not find a more devoted worker than a guide dog. I don't want anybody to be left behind because they have a disability or because they're different. Well, I studied electrical engineering. From the second year of my degree, I started a company that develops tactile displays that allow a person to feel what they're looking at. On the third year of my degree, I started another company that allow people to catch public transport without being left behind if you can't see a vehicle to hail it, or dropped off at the incorrect stop because you don't know where you are or because you can't see a map. If I want to push myself, I know that I have the support not only from my partner and my family, but also my friends, and as a consequence, my attitude towards tackling problems, I guess, becomes stronger. And, well, as I always say, no pain, no gain, right?
Santiago, are you here? Say hello. The next piece is entitled Fully Free. The composer is Likhuta, Brisbane-based Ukrainian composer. Amazing talent, amazing and unique voice. Kathy heard the story, spoke with Santiago, and Santiago at one point, as I'm told, had said, looking back to when he was riding the bike is the last time he felt fully free. And that popped with Kathy, and that became the title of her piece. One thing I just think is worth mentioning is the story was told to the painter and the story was told to the composer. They never got to hear or see each other's work until tonight, really. So along that creative process, there's any number of potentials, and what's really amazing is how closely so many of these align. Kathy's music in here is somewhat cyclical, and you can hear sort of things that are what you expect and some that you don't. And it sort of, you can see that in the painting as well. And I think that she's borrowed just a little bit of Latin leanings, if you will, without going full Latin. So we hope that you enjoy the world premiere. All of these are world premieres, the world premiere of Fully Free.
When I was born, the doctors saw that my eyes weren't functioning. They sort of knew that there was a problem with them, so then when I was 9 days old, one of them actually ruptured from the pressure in it called glaucoma, with my other eye having a condition called Peters anomaly, which was clouding over the cornea. My sight basically is, so up close I can see things, so if I'm holding my phone like right up to my face like that, I can see it, but then anything far away is really blurry and I can't see anything except colours pretty much, and it just sort of blends in. And this is my seeing eye dog Sadie. I got her just over 2 years ago when I was 14, making me the youngest person in Australia to ever get a seeing eye dog. Having Sadie's helped a lot really with my independence and just sort of getting around in general. I can catch the bus, do whatever really. I can go to the gym in the morning on my own now and do everything like that without an issue. So at the moment I'm doing 3 upper body days and 2 lower body days a week. I go to the gym to help with my strength in sports a lot, and then also just to keep healthy and keep my fitness up with some running too. Losing my sight at such a young age really has taught me to come back from anything, and I've always sort of had motivation from the goals I have. One of my biggest life goals is making my debut for Australia in the blind cricket teams, and then also in the 2032 Paralympics to play goalball there. There wasn't really a point that struck me that I was different to my brother and sisters. I've always just sort of felt the same and just like them at home. I really enjoy cooking because it gives me an opportunity to help out with the family and saves mum from cooking a couple nights a week. Having such a supportive family has been so important throughout my life to let me do whatever I wanted. My family's really not let me get away with doing anything less than others. Like, I've been able to do everything like a normal person, really. One really great memory I have is when we went to the Grand Canyon in America before I lost a bit more sight. This one just kept such a special place in my heart. I remembered all the orange and then the blue skies, and it really just stuck in me. Being with the whole family was really special, like having all 6 of us there. It was a really good time. Sometimes it can be challenging with other people sort of doubting your abilities, so trying to stop you from doing something because you might get hurt, it's really pretty challenging sometimes. I want others to know that having a vision impairment doesn't really hold people back. Like, there's definitely differences, but it's not something that'll stop you from anything at all. You can do whatever you want.
Oliver, where are you, Oliver? There he is. Hello. Every story, every single one, truly inspiring. I also would like to just thank again, because we take it maybe for granted how beautiful these short films are. So thank you again to the film school for all the wonderful work they're doing. So when the composers were approached, they said, this is your forces. You've got an 80-piece orchestra and a 100-piece choir, or at least they said you have an orchestra and choir. I don't know if they knew how many yet. Our next composer, Paul Jarman, decided to write for choir and piano, so the orchestra is going to take a little bit of a break. And it's a great opportunity to thank our folks from residents of Birralee for their amazing singing, along with the Conservatorium singers and some students from the Young Conservatorium Choir. How about that choir? So I'm going to go take a break now and bring out the director from Birralee and the conductor of Residents of Birralee, Paul Hawley, and he will introduce the piece as well. Welcome, Paul.
Paul Jarman is a wonderful composer. He'd like to still think that he's a young Australian composer. And if Paul's young, so am I, so I'm good with that. So it is great. I've had the pleasure of working on a number of Jarms's pieces over the years, and Jarms is a fantastic storyteller. And he loves learning about people who have an amazing connection with this country, an amazing story to tell, and he just, whenever there's an opportunity to tell a story like that, he grabs it and really goes for glory, as you are about to hear. And so he is inspired by a lot of people to be able to share, and I'm sure he's very grateful to Oliver for sharing his story and being able to put that into this piece tonight. Because it has text, I don't need to tell you very much else, because you're going to be able to listen along to the story, and you'll hear reference to a number of things that Oliver spoke about in the video in this piece as well. So I hope that wherever you are, Jarms, thank you so much for writing this piece for us, and I trust that you will enjoy our performance of My Grand Dream.
Whatever it takes.
Thank you very much, Paul, and thanks also to accompanist Brendan Murtaugh, who's just left the stage. Just a couple of words from me before we play our last piece and show our last film before the interval. In Australia, more than 13 million people have one or more chronic eye conditions, and almost 500,000 are living with a vision impairment or blindness. Around 90% of all blindness and vision impairment is preventable or treatable if detected early. It is for this reason that Griffith University has joined forces with the Queensland Eye Institute Foundation, the state's largest independent academic research institute devoted to eye-related health and disease. Events like tonight can without a doubt raise awareness with the hopes of significant impact on people's lives both today and for a better future. A few weeks ago, the Last Scene exhibition launched at the Griffith University Art Museum up the street at the Queensland College of Art. It was a truly inspiring evening as our vision-impaired participants and the public enjoyed the unveiling of the 10 commissioned artworks by our amazing Australian artists. 4 of the 10 artworks were auctioned on the night, raising over $100,000 for the Queensland Eye Institute Foundation. This is where you come in. 6 more are still to be auctioned online, and some already have a pretty hefty price tag, which is great news. But also there are other amazing prizes, so we encourage you to support at whatever level that you can. So after this next piece, as you head to the foyer for interval, have a couple of drinks, and you might be lost for conversation, I'll give you a couple of conversation starters. Would that be all right? Okay. How about, obviously, how good is tonight, right? Or perhaps, after a little sip, you could say, oh, I think I might buy a canvas print of, yeah, you're doing it, right? Insert artwork here. Or, hey, love, you know that super rich uncle who loves art and supporting a good cause? Why don't you send him the link to lastscene.com.au? Okay, you get the idea. So we will, our last piece before interval, enjoy the interval, and we'll see you back on with the show.
I remember as a teenager in high school thinking to myself one day that, I'd love to ride my bike to the beach, and we lived in Tamworth, and I always loved being around the mountains and wanted to ride up that mountain, and there was something that really motivated me to want to do this bike ride, and it was that when you get to the top of the mountain range, there's 34 kilometres of continuous downhill on the other side. And so we made plans and prepared for the journey, and I remember the day that it was about to happen, and I got out of bed that morning pretty early. I said, oh, Dad, I'm ready now. And he says, oh, you get going and I'll catch up to you shortly. And so I got on my bike and started riding down my street and through town past the shops, and I could just see the shape of the shops and the edge of the road and the gutter, and then when I got onto the highway I could see the white line, and so I kept following the white line, and it was like only a narrow road with just a small fence on the side before you sort of rolled off the cliff down the other side. So it was a pretty hairy sort of a trip until you got to the top of the mountain, and then that was the moment that I'd been waiting for. I remember when we got to the top of the mountain, it was actually lunchtime, and Dad and I got off the bike and I put my bike down and we went and sat and have a bite to eat, and then we just stood there on the side of the mountain looking out over this tremendous vista. And Dad had to describe some of the finer details, but I could see the horizon and the mountain shapes and the blues and the purples and the greens and so forth, and I could, you could hear sometimes the farm and the industry happening in the distance. When I spoke with my wonderful artist, Robert Brownhall, he had to somehow capture that. And so I described to him what it was like for me, and he's done an amazing job of capturing scenes of rolling hills and mountains, and it was just a great reflection really for me as well, and I think he was really humbled with the opportunity to be able to recreate such a cherished moment in the life of someone who's lost their eyesight. You know, I look at the people around me that can see, and I think, you know, you guys do not know what you've got. You know, an incredible ability to be able to see. I can't see my wife smiling. We've got a little granddaughter now and a little grandson, and I've never ever seen them. And I've heard it said that I think like 75% of that can be prevented. And so it's something that we should value more than we do.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lorin Nicholson.
Having Liebers is, it's like seeing the world in a constant watercolour filter. You don't really notice things with lines of sharp detail. You kind of see everything as blurs of colours on a wall. If you know the measurements, it means that in both eyes I have about 1% vision compared to a normal person. My family grew up in the country on the Condamine River. We had Murray grey cattle. And because no matter what you did, no matter how many fences you fixed, they would find a way out and you would have to go and wrangle them all back. At the time, I could actually see, and my brothers, my two older brothers, couldn't. One of them was an amazing runner. He would just run without any fear whatsoever. He couldn't see a darn thing in front of him. Eventually, a few years later, I ended up losing my sight as well, and I think I could understand why he just let it all go so that he could just run. Not something that was easy to do, and eventually I managed to figure out how to let go of the fear and do it as well, but he was an inspiring person. I was about 11 and a half when my vision started to fade. It was nighttime and I was trying to read a book. I didn't really like reading. My parents convinced me to start reading Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, the very first book. So I did. One night, I couldn't really read it and I didn't know why. The words just, I could see that there was black on the page, but they weren't really there. I couldn't discern any symbols on them. Over about the span of 6 months, my vision went from perfect to less than 1%. Through that time, I got to experience a variety of things. And at the time I was in grade 7, so we do that typical thing that everyone does when they're in grade 7, and we all go to Canberra and we learn about politics, and that's where I found my last scene. The last thing that I can truly remember that stuck out to me was a field of tulips, red, orange, and yellow. At the time, I was having difficulty seeing the colour red, but I could still remember it from this. I hadn't completely lost all of my colour vision at that time. I suppose that's what Last Scene's about. It's trying to give other people a glimpse into something that you've seen, into something that you've experienced. And the artists, they had that job. They had to try and take some words, something that we may not have even had imagery for, something that they may not have even had reference data for, and they had to try and create something that would not only speak to the person who the story came from, but everyone else as well, to see if they could convey the story. Naomi White, who was the artist that did my painting, did manage to do that. And when I first saw the painting, I just thought, wow. Because I'm sure that they had quite a lot of emotion coming up with what it is that we thought we saw or what it is that we remembered, because they're not necessarily the same thing.
Eleanor. Where are you? This one's for you. This next piece for Eleanor is been composed by Hudson Beck, a wonderful young composer, graduated from here a couple of years ago from the composition department, and is doing amazing things. And this is another one that's very special. Well, they all are, but just to remember that the composer hasn't seen the painting and the painter hasn't heard the work, but they go together so beautifully. So Hudson's piece is entitled Sunrise of Spring. We hope that you enjoy.
I was on the battlefield. I tasted the blood that gave me the colour red. I could taste the dirt, which obviously gave me the colour brown. When the morphine kicked in, I still don't think I realised that I was blind. When I came to, I was surrounded by my wife at the time, my family, and my doctors. And once again, I still don't think I had comprehended I'd lost my sight, because I could still see my wife, hear my father, which gave me a picture of my father. I could hear my mother, had an image of my mother. And I was just feeling comforted. So through their voice, through previous memories, I visualized them. From Germany, we ended up coming to Brisbane. We landed in Brisbane on the 11th of the 11th, Remembrance Day. I think that's when I realised I lost my sight. When we landed in Australia, I couldn't make sense of everything what was going on, and I was in pain still, and the doctors were giving me things, and I was trying to rip off my bandages because I couldn't see. I remember the Qantas crew announcing me on the PA system and everyone giving a round of applause, but I couldn't see it. I couldn't take it in, and I couldn't understand why. I then arrived at the Prince Alexander Hospital. My brother was there. I couldn't see him. So I guess, to answer your question, I first realised when I landed in Brisbane. It sunk in when I got to the Prince Alexander, and that's when I started having to make choices.
Michael? Is Michael here? Thank you. Ralph Hultgren, who composed the Intrada, the opening number, is also the sort of composer liaison, or we called composer wrangler, but it didn't look that good in the program. Liaison sounds much better, doesn't it? Ralph composed this next piece dedicated to Michael, and it's called One Engineer's Triptych. And a triptych is a piece that's in 3 parts, since the trip, and the first is peace. So in the story that was told to me, but from Michael to Ralph, the opening represents looking up over the horizon in Afghanistan and seeing sort of helicopter lights dancing around almost like fireflies. That's the opening bit. The second chapter, if you will, is pain, which I think you'll hear the intensity of that. And then that translates into the third chapter, which is hope. We hope that you enjoy the world premiere of One Engineer's Triptych.
It was January 2015, and I made 2 phone calls. One was to my sister to share her the news, and she said, well, you always knew this day was going to come. The second phone call was to Triathlon Australia. How can I continue to do triathlon? And they said to me in January 2015, Katie, did you know that para-triathlon is a sport and it's debuting at Rio in 2016? Would you be interested in trying out? The first 5 years of my life I didn't hear a lot. It was something Mum and Dad had noticed, but I weren't quite sure. I was always quite competitive. Sport was a big part of our upbringing. You didn't necessarily need that hearing. You're just in the moment, you're playing the sport. You probably feel free. I really enjoyed being on the sporting field for that reason. I didn't feel restricted by my hearing loss. I found out about my eye condition when I was 22, and I had to see the ophthalmologist. She said, Katie, the reason for your hearing loss is you have Usher syndrome. That's why you're struggling to see at night. That's why you're struggling to see in underground car park, is that you're losing your vision. So I got very active in running and started doing half marathons, looking for that weekend challenge. Then it got to the point where riding was no longer safe. My ophthalmologist told me at the age of 39, Katie, you're now legally blind, it's not safe for you to ride. That's when the para-triathlon journey started, and fast forward, there I was with my guide McKeely Jones. We would go to Rio in the sport of para-triathlon at Copacabana Beach with Jesus Redeemer in the background. I am surrounded by the 10 greatest para-triathletes in the world, and we're all on that floating platoon, and the race is about to start, and it was almost silence. You could hear the birds in the background, just the waves of the ocean. You're holding on the edge of the floating platoon, you're looking at your guide, and there's this look in her eyes, and she said to me, KK, you're going to really need to hurt today. And I remember I didn't flinch. I thought, yep, I'm going to get this done. At that point, the gun goes off and it's game on. And I didn't have a great swim. I think I was 5th or 6th out of the water, so we had a lot of work ahead of us. I remember grabbing onto McKeely's elbow as she helps guide me out of that water into the transition. Right foot, left foot. And then we accelerate out of that transition. McKeely's like, up, out of the saddle, push hard. And the whole 20 kilometres, I'm just listening to her cues. It's now thinking about dismounting off that bike, getting ready for the run. The run is my favourite leg. I feel free in the run. I don't feel I'm so reliant on my guide, even though we're tethered together. I hear her say, relax your breathing, relax your shoulders, focus. The whole run, I was waiting for McKeely to say, lift, you need to lift the pace, and she didn't. McKeely said, we're on the finish line, KK. You can relax now. But I wasn't ready to switch off. I kept running hard all the way until there it was. And I never forget holding that banner in my hands. And my mum and dad and my friends and family in the background, and knowing they were all with me in that moment on that day in Rio and Copacabana Beach. With disability, I find you need to allow yourself that space to think about the things that you're fearful of and acknowledge that. I think, like everything, you have to find a way forward, and I don't like to use the word losing. I gain from my disability because it teaches me so many things. It's opened my world up to the Paralympic movement. People like Denny Dutoro, 7-time Paralympian, to Sport Access Foundation, the charity I founded to help kids with disability. That's what Usher syndrome's done for me. That's what sight loss has done for me.
Katie. Where are you, Katie? We have no shortage of inspiring stories, so we are all going to be supercharged for the next 5 years from this. Steve Newcomb, who is the composer of the next piece, entitled Now I See. Steve is the head of jazz here at the Conservatorium, and he spoke to me, he said he was blown away when he finally, because he was at the launch and saw the painting, at how much what was in the painting and the flowing nature and that sort of thing reflected what was in the piece of music that he had already written. And he just almost felt like they were meant to be together. You'll hear in what he's written some insecurities, some sudden bursts of joy, but some confusion as well. You'll hear the orchestra gets to improvise, sort of being out there in the waves and not knowing where to be. He's a jazzer. He gives them improv freedom. We usually don't do that in an orchestra. And then that turns into this light motivation, and you'll hear hints, without going full Latin, you'll hear hints of some rhythms that Steve has borrowed just to hint towards the Rio Games, and then towards the end, winning gold. So we hope that you enjoy Now I See.
I used to ride around on the tractor with my uncle. He used to be a backhoe operator. I really love construction sites. I love huge machinery. The sound of the diesel engines and the sound of front-end loaders going around pushing the dirt around. You can feel the vibrations in the ground, the smell of diesel fumes. I just love that smell. I can't get enough of it. I knew when I was going to work with my uncle that I'd never drive trucks, ride bikes and operate earth-moving equipment as an adult, but I'd done as much as I could while I could. I was born with glaucoma, astigmatism and cataracts. It's a disease that eats the optic nerve away. The more I try to focus on that thing, the more the picture jumps around. I grew up with a twin brother and another brother that was 3 years older than me. I used to get excluded because I couldn't see what I was doing and I wasn't as much fun to play with. That's, probably why I was so close to my uncles, because, they didn't care and they took me under their wing, so to speak. When I used to work in the factory, they started offering woodwork classes. I would take time off work and go and do, 4 hours a day. I've been doing it now for 25, 27 years. You can take a piece of wood and turn it into something beautiful, like a bowl, or cut it up and make furniture with it. You have an idea, but then it might not turn out like that and be completely different to what you thought it was going to be like. And that's a fun journey in itself. I found out that I could go to a music studio and learn how to play music, just listen to music or do whatever I wanted to do. There was no set agenda. I make the most of everything I got and just take life at its fullest and do everything I can do. I try not to let anything hold me back. If you're growing up and you have a disability, don't let it stop you from fulfilling your dreams. Be realistic, but don't let it stop you. If you have an idea, then do what you can to make it work. If you can't make it work, then don't let it get you down. Move on and have a good time with life.
So Alan's already been up on stage, but where are you, Alan? Say hello, there he is. So Lisa Cheney is an Australian fabulous composer, also a graduate from, can you tell that we're proud? From the Conservatorium, and Lisa is a wonderful composer and just does really eccentric, wonderful, different works. She took the story of I don't know if she put diesel fuel fumes into this, but she took the story of the work site and your fascination with the work site, and you'll hear the percussion get to basically just be a work site in a seemingly uncontrolled environment, but I can tell you they're in a very controlled situation. So borrowing from that, you'll hear a work site from the percussionist. You'll hear some of the different beats and feels and grooves that Alan liked to work with coming into that nature of it. We hope that you enjoy some of the beautiful moments and some of the absolute chaos that happens on a construction site in this world premiere, another one, of Lisa Cheney's called Tear It Down and Build It Up. I hope you're having as much fun out there as we are up here. Yeah, thank you. We have one piece, one package left for you, but before I do that, I thought I'd take the opportunity to say some thank yous. This is an event where the efforts of many from many different backgrounds have come together to create something that I hope that you found truly inspirational. To the Conservatorium Symphony Orchestra and Choir with the voices of Birralee, let's hear it for these musicians, eh? Yeah, thank you, thank you. Choir, stand. Orchestra. That part wasn't written in. I wasn't expecting that. Thank you for the love. To the participants, artists, filmmakers, musicians, composers, technical crew, front of house staff, of which many are Griffith alumni. Did I say that before? Staff and students, thank you for your generosity. To our partner, the Queensland Eye Institute Foundation, we are grateful for your dedication to this project. To the hardworking, boots on the ground last scene steering committee, there is one of those, with members from both Queensland Eye Institute and Griffith, in addition to participants, and the team was amazing. Specifically, I'd like to say a couple of names, but then I'll keep it short because otherwise the list goes on. But I would like to thank Mark Radford, Gemma Elder, and Ruth Turnbull from QEI, and Belinda Hopgood and Michael Hibbard, and Natalie Lewandowski-Cox from Griffith. So please thank you to them. There are many, many more, but I want to go back a little bit. This was supposed to happen a while ago, and then this thing called COVID happened. Prior to the steering committee, before they kicked into high gear, there were a few of us, which was initially led by Wayne Thompson and Ralph Hultgren. At that time, we really didn't know what this would become, but we did meet regularly for coffee, and we cried a lot. So I think the baristas were confused. But thank you to you both for your energy and inspiration in this. It's an absolute privilege working with you. To the Last Scene partners, Publicists Worldwide, Beyond Payments, Shan Taylor Lawyers, Inservio, 9 Queensland, it is only with your support that Last Scene is even possible. Our very clever partners at Southern Cross Australia, TalkVia, Amazon Alexa, and Vision Australia have used their expertise to create integrated features to make the Last Scene exhibition at the Griffith University Art Museum inclusive, accessible, and without doubt memorable for all. This has included tactile art, soundscapes to help the art speak, and a voice-activated guide available on Alexa and online at lastscene.com.au. To Brisbane City Council and the Queensland Government through Arts Queensland, your support for this project, but also for impactful research and for harnessing the power of the arts for social benefit, is genuinely appreciated. There are probably 1,000 more thank yous, but if I start mentioning more names, like I said, I'm just going to get myself into trouble. In closing, I'd like to just share a few thoughts, if I may. Tonight has made me, and I suspect most of us, without a significant vision impairment, stop and think about how different our life might be without sight. We've heard from our participants that we must not take this gift of vision for granted. Perhaps we can each stop for just a moment and think about what our last scene or most memorable vision is right now if we were to lose sight tomorrow. Think then of how that might be communicated by an artist, composer, an orchestra, and a choir, and you might get an ounce of what our inspirational participants may be feeling tonight. Together, we have the opportunity to make a significant contribution to supporting innovation and excellence in eye health research with the ultimate goal of eliminating preventable blindness in the community. Proceeds from tonight's performance and the sale of the artworks help the Institute's sight-saving research. So to continue your support of Last Scene, if you want this to just keep on going on and going on and going on, please go to the website. Perhaps bid on an artwork, buy a canvas print of your favorite artwork you've seen tonight, or enter to win some of the amazing prizes that are on offer. And if you haven't seen the original artworks in all of their glory, please visit the Griffith University Art Museum just down the street, as they're still on display until the 29th of April. Enough from me. Thank you for joining us, and please enjoy our final story of the evening.
I've been totally blind for all of my life since birth. I was born in Vietnam, that's my country of origin. When I was a really young baby, my parents put me onto the street because they were so poor back in, obviously it was the war then. My earliest memory was when I was on a plane to Australia from my country of origin, Vietnam. And I remember laying on the floor of the plane, just rolling around, like, obviously I was a really young kid. When I was in an orphanage that they had set up for young children, and I remember laying in bed just really listening to the radio. And I actually, when I was young, had an obsession for having a transistor with me all the time. The music that I was listening to, which I didn't realise at the time, but it was just so soothing and melodic, and I think that's probably where I got my love of melodic music for that I like to play now.
And he's a fantastic writer and musician as well. And so he's got 3 albums, is it?
Will be.
Will be. The 3rd one is on its way.
Music means to me a lot of things, but I think more than anything it means the opportunity to break down barriers, because music is a barrier breaker. I mean, I can play music with anybody and they forget about my disability. You know, straight away we're just comrades doing the same thing. Obviously there's some things that I wish didn't happen to me as well, but at the same time I know how fortunate and lucky I am. I just want to have another day of life. And that's what drives me. Get up, do the things I love, be with the people that I enjoy being with, and maybe meeting some new people that I could be with, and just, yeah. But I think music also gives you an opportunity to heal people. I think it also gives you an opportunity to help people. So for me, knowing that just made music worthwhile, you know, for me. And that's the type of thing, you know, I think music, for me, can do it, and also allows me to do, you know.
Just another big thank you to all of our filmmakers for the wonderful stories that they've told. And David, where are you, David? So for our final piece, although it doesn't have an asterisk in your program, the choir is indeed involved. John Rotar is a Queensland composer, conductor, chorister, wonderful talent, and he has composed the piece for tonight. And you'll get to see the lyrics and you'll get to hear the lyrics, so it tells itself. But it is his setting of a better life, and I think it's a fitting end to the concert. Thank you all very much once again, and please enjoy our final piece. Could I have all the creative artists, the composers, the filmmakers, the participants, please stand now for your applause.